Okay, we're going to start off with what's your name, how old are you, and where are you from?
My name is Victori Kepsel. I'm 26 years old and I'm from Orlando, Florida.
Perfect. And then the big question is, how did you become an Elvis fan?
I feel like for many of us who are in our 20s, I became an Elvis fan back in 2022 seeing the Elvis movie.
Okay, great. And what was it like going to the theater? Like you didn't really have much of an introduction to Elvis before that. Was this like your first introduction?
I knew who Elvis was because my grandmother was a fan. She had like a little hound dog that would sing You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, and I would play with it as a child. But I went to the theater not really knowing who Elvis was except for a few of his hits and left completely changed that day and interested in learning more.
Yeah. So what was that like? What was that experience like coming out of that movie?
It was so crazy because I went with my two friends and my parents, and I was trying to talk to them to see like where they were at leaving theater, like if they were just as affected as I was. And they were like, "Yeah, like that was a cool movie." And I was like, "No, but like, how did it make you feel? Like, do you feel changed?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "But do you want to listen to his music now?" They're like, "No, I'm okay." And I'm like, "Oh." Maybe I'm just mentally unwell then, and I'm like starting to kind of go crazy. But I left so wanting to learn more about the history, his lifestyle, and just who he was as a person, and also like the people around him because they lived such a fascinating lifestyle for that era. The 50s, 60s, 70s, so different than most people. So that's kind of what drew me to Elvis. It wasn't exactly his music until I learned more about him.
Yeah. And so the that journey kind of looked like, what did that look like for you? Was that reading books? Was that going on like finding a community online? Like what did that look like for you?
Well, the first book, I know so many people have opinions about this, and I don't want to be canceled for it. This is just my opinion. My first book that I read was Elvis and Me.
Me
And
too. Absolutely.
oh, oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome to hear because like I fell in love with their love story. I'm such a sucker for romantic stories and love novels, and it was so cool to see such a whirlwind of a story that actually happened between two people. So it made me dive deeper first into Priscilla and then also into Elvis, and just knowing that like Priscilla was still alive, there was a chance for me to kind of meet her and learn more about their situation. So that's kind of what spiraled into everything and how I started TikTok because I wanted to find other people that loved the same things that I did. And then once I met Priscilla, that video went viral, and that's when I found the community of people that I love now.
Yeah. So what is it like being able to find a community? Because I know people that have been fans since, forever, like never had this community. So to be able to like, day one, be able to jump in and have all these people around who have like a similar mindset, and you're also learning with these people at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, what has that been like?
It's really cool because joining the community, you meet so many people in like walks of life of how long they loved Elvis and how they got to know them. Like we have the older generation, we have like the middle generation, and like the newer fans like me. And it's cool because everyone has something that they can input and teach you and you can learn more from. And I think that's the beautiful thing is it's like no one is like it's not like a hierarchy. I know in some communities you can like go in there and it can be really overwhelming and people like, well, you don't know this, you don't know that. But with this community, it's so loving and so welcoming. And it just built almost like a sisterhood of girls who love a man. And we all understand emotionally, like the trauma that we're going through of never being able to meet someone that isn't here. So it's like just a different vibe than you telling your friend off the street, hey, I like Elvis. They don't actually understand it though, I feel like.
Yeah, but you've been able to kind of like take that and take it to the next level, I think, and going to start a podcast. So you started the Pink Cadillacs now with your friend Sky. So can you tell me about that? Like what the motivation was behind that and kind of how that's developed over the past 2 years?
Of course. So, looking at the Elvis community, a lot of the people I was talking to at the time were very, very, very old. And I am realizing the original fans that Elvis had started with are no longer with us. And I was eagerly looking for a community of younger girls who could carry that legacy on. And I saw an opening within this and was like, I want to start a podcast. I made a video on TikTok. I didn't want to do it alone, it just seemed a little lonely. And I was like, girlies, where you at? I need a co-host. And that's how I found Sky. And with that, I saw that opening in a niche that needed to be fit. And I wanted to create a community where girls could bond over Elvis that were younger and wanted to carry on the legacy as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when was the first time you got to go to Graceland?
It was last year. Well, actually, this year. My mind is thinking New Year's already. I'm skipping ahead.
Mm.
It was January, and I went to birthday with Sky for the first time, and that was my first time at Graceland.
Yeah. So what was that like? Like getting to go into the house for the first time after spending all this time researching this man?
It so I felt like I was having an outer body experience because I read all this stuff and I picture all this stuff in my mind. It's like when you're reading a novel and you have this world that you created yourself from not knowing or being to that place, and having that Graceland world and that mindset of how I thought Elvis would grew up and like what he did there and his relationship with Priscilla and everything and Lisa, and then actually going to the place and seeing it in person gave me such a weird outer body experience. It didn't feel real. And I
Mhm.
also felt very disconnected because I was so overwhelmed trying to take everything in and felt pressure to keep up with the tour and everything. So I was just very overwhelmed by everything because I read this guy's life and here I am standing in his living room, like a very personal and intimate moment. So it's so unreal when you first experience Graceland.
So you have a lot of different passions. So if anybody follows you online, you have your horses and then you have a
Mhm.
very unique job. But how does Elvis really fit into your life?
It's crazy because like when I'm working over at Universal, where I'm at, I literally stand in front of a hotel called Priscilla Hotel,
Mhm.
which is really weird. I'm standing there and I'm seeing all these Easter eggs of Elvis literally everywhere. I mean, we have the Hard Rock Cafe with a bunch of his stuff in it. They play Elvis music down the street when I'm there, and it's just like a very weird, surreal place. And Elvis has kind of inspired me in a way of how I present myself online and how I hold myself and kind of the passions and careers that I want to take. Um, and a lot to do with it is like fashion and dressing up and like being very expressive like he was too. So not only am I taking inspiration from his music, but I'm also taking inspiration from his lifestyle, which has affected my work and everything that I do, I feel like.
To kind of like go along that vein, so like you have a job kind of in
Mhm.
entertainment,
Yeah.
and you're in front of people all the time. You're basically a Disney princess, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
every day. And so you have people coming up to you all the time. And so you do you feel kind of a kinship with Elvis in that sense, like of being able to understand him a little bit more of being that, I don't know, kind of being in front of people like that. And as you said, like how he inspires you. Like how does he inspire you to I don't know if it's about being more humble in front of people or I don't know, like I don't want to put words in your mouth,
No,
but
I completely understand. Like, no one's ever put this perspective for me or asked me this question. So I think this is like a really insightful question of how I see it because I was thinking about that the other day, and it's just how tiring it is to put on a performance every day of being in the eyes of people. And I sometimes hermit myself off often because I get so overwhelmed with every platform that I have on here, everyone wanting to talk to me and taking 1,000 pictures a day and interacting with 1,000 people that come through. And I understand Elvis wanting to completely shut out the world and be by himself for days on end, just to find that quiet and peace because he was constantly in the eyes of people and constantly people looked at him like a god. And it was one of those things where they expected so much of him, but he was just human like you and I. So to
Mhm.
have that weight of the world on your shoulders, I mean, mine is very minor compared to like what he did nationally and worldwide, but I understand just a glimpse of why he wanted to disconnect and be with the people that he loved the most without having people expect so much for him still in those moments.
So how would your life be different without Elvis in it?
I don't think I would have traveled and met the people that I would have and been so inspired. The community and the outlets and the opportunities that I've had since starting the Elvis podcast and being a part of this community has been unreal. Now, I had my worst TikTok and that side of social media, but there was something else that I was yearning for and wanting to see, and the Elvis community provided that, and it's been an amazing experience. Just so much traveling and getting connections and friendships came from this, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my best friends are Elvis people. Like, and I remember when I was going to Elvis Week last year, or this last year, I'm doing it too, or like a couple months ago. And my mom was like, "You're going with strangers," and I'm like, "No, they're not strangers. They're my friends. Like, I know I
Exactly.
talk to them every day." And she's like, "They're strangers." And I'm
People
like,
don't get it. If you're not a part of the community, it's like you meet these girls online and then you meet in person and it's like you're instant besties. There's never been a separation.
so what is the most important thing you think that non-Elvis fans should know about Elvis?
I really do think people should stop taking information from TikTok and online sources and assuming that it's true. there's a lot of people that will say things that or misquote videos or whatever, just false information that isn't factual about him and go based off of that opinion. I really still like do think it's like people need to sit down, actually read up on who the man was. He's not a pedophile. He didn't steal music from black people. Like it's all these different assumptions, and you're just taking a 1 minute clip from TikTok of a person who is also uneducated and making it your own opinion. So
Yeah.
I would encourage people to study.
Totally agree with that. Everybody puts him in that idea of this
Yeah.
caricature of him in the late 70s. And it's just like he had 24 years of music. Like, just go back and educate yourself. So then my last question for you is what does being an Elvis fan mean to you today?
That's such a hard one. Let me think of the proper way to say that. Um, I feel like being an Elvis fan and for what it means to me now is carrying on the next generation and the next legacy for girls and guys to know who he is. Because we are the forefront of what is to be during Elvis week and so on, because people are passing and getting to greet Elvis at the gates. Lucky them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we are the next generation that needs to carry out this fandom and this community and so on. So I feel like we are holding the torch, and that's what I feel like it is for me in this time right now in this generation.
Do you feel a responsibility to carry on his legacy?
Yes, I do. I started a podcast for a reason. I saw something that I wanted to do, and I'm still trying to pursue it. There's time to grow. We are gonna grow, and I know this is just the beginning steps, and we have such a big mass community already. But it's just working on getting our name out there and letting the girls know that they aren't alone and to join the community with us.
Yeah. Well, Victory, thank you so much for talking to me today. This was super interesting, and you can definitely tell your love for Elvis like runs deep. So, thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome. Thank you.